Welcome to How to Become a Production SQL Database Administrator. My name is Raphael. Now that we've taken the standalone server in the previous video and created a domain controller and a domain called SQL, we're now ready to give it an IP address. So before we even start that, what is an IP address? Simply put, just like a house has a unique address, every computer in the country actually, or in the world, has a unique IP address. And that's what we're going to assign it to. Right now it's getting its IP address randomly. What we want it to do is create an IP address that's permanent to that specific server. So in our case of a domain controller, we're going to now give it an IP address. And let's see how you do that. So let's go to our server. You'll notice here at the bottom right here, there's no network connectivity because we don't have the appropriate network configured. So right click. And actually, before we do that, there's one thing I want you to do. I want you to go to the manager and click on the network. And from the attached to, and this is the options you have. What I want you to do is the bridged adapter. This is basically my wireless network card for my host, and that's what I want to use to connect to the internet. So go OK. Now this will save it. And what I would do at this point is restart the services, but let me see if we can restart them after that. So now you'll see here, what we need to do is join the SQL domain. Right, it's not running. So right click, open network, change adapter settings, double click, properties, uncheck the 6, we're not going to be using this. Check the Internet Protocol version 4 and go to properties. As you can see, this is where we assign what's called IP addresses. So you can get an IP setting assigned automatically if your network supports this capability. Otherwise, you need to ask your network admin for the appropriate IP settings. So this can be confusing to most people, so I'll show you how to do that. Right now, I'm going to be creating an IP address using our local system. So how do I get the IP address? Well, let's look at it this way. The first thing you want to do is on your host, let me minimize all this, meaning on your computer, on your either your desktop or laptop, go and open your command prompt like this. If you don't know how to do that, just go Windows R and type in CMD and go OK, and it will pop up. I've already got a shortcut there. Right here, I want you to type in the following IP config and enter. And what we're looking for now, and remember, my computer, my physical computer here has a wireless card attached to it. So this is what I'm looking for right now. This is how I access the internet. And this is how I access all the default gateways. The default gateway is 192.168.0.1. You want to find out what your default gateway is. This is my default gateway, and this is the way I got this, is from the internet company. So when the internet company comes in, it gives you a modem and a router, and the router's address for the default gateway is this. Yours may be dissimilar. Yours may be 192.168.1.1. So if yours, whatever this is important to get and take a note of it. So what I'm going to do now is, this is the range it gives you. Usually they give you 100 range, meaning the IP address will go 192.168.0.1, and then it can go up to 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and right up to 100. So you can attach up to 100 devices using this default gateway. So this is the important thing that you need to know. So go to your main computer, your host computer, type the command prompt and get this address. So again, yours might be different. This is a very important concept to understand. So I know mine is 192.168.1. I'm going to minimize this. So what I'm going to do now is go back to my thing, and I'm going to select a following IP address. So I'm going to select 192.168. Oops, why isn't it doing it? I don't think I've got the locks, so let's try that. There you go, 192.168.0, because mine is 0, I believe. And now I'm going to assign a number to it. Now, I may have other devices already attached from 1 to 50, so I'm going to make sure and be out of that range. So I'm going to assign this particular domain controller an IP address of beginning with 50. And then I'm going to just click on this, and you'll get 255.255.255.0. Leave that is. In the default gateway, type in your default gateway. This is your default gateway, the 1. So yours may be different. So pay attention to that 192.168.0.1. That's fine. Now, in the preferred DNS, it says preferred DNS is 197. That's fine. We can leave it here. Here, I want you to redirect this to your 50. So in this case, it's 192.168.0.50. Oops. Let's get rid of that. .0.50. Yep, doing it again. 0.50. So basically, the DNS, the domain naming services, will redirect itself to this domain controller and go OK. And go close. We'll just take a second. And then we're going to reboot this system also. There's a few more things we have to do that could cause an issue. One is the firewall. So anytime you're joining a domain and you get a message saying you cannot join the domain, now you'll notice that I can access the internet and I'm part of that SQL domain. Before, I didn't see SQL down. Now I have internet access. So that's great. And that's wonderful. Now I've changed it. And if I right-click, open networks, network adapter, double-click, properties, 4, you can see that I've got the static address here. So what we're going to do is when we create another virtual machine and another operating system, maybe we want to join this domain, we're going to assign it a separate IP address, one increasing to this. So the next one is going to be 51. Then the next server is going to be 52, and so on. Now, we're using a 192, which is our local, but in a production company, is most likely a 10 series. So again, ask your network admin for what the IP address you should be assigned. So now we can join the, now we can access the internet. But before we do that, let's look at a couple of configurations. I want you to go to your server manager and left click it, and let's start that. And there's a couple of configurations that I need you to do. Now, if you're, well, let me look at this first. Go to your local, click on that. What I want you to do on the IE Enhanced Security, it's on. I want you to turn it off. Otherwise, you'll get pop-ups for the Internet Explorer. And you'll see that the domain firewall is on, so I want you to disable all the firewall. So left click here. Now in a production environment, you won't do this. You'll ask your network to give you an exception, but for our purpose, we're good. So now it's turned off. If you have another computer and you're trying to join the domain, and if you get the error, you cannot join the domain, it's most likely that your firewall is on. This is the reason why I want to repeat this and indicate this, because some of the students have problems, and you will have problems, and this is the reason. Every time you do that, make sure you turn this off. And I'm going to close this now. And what I'm going to do now is actually restart the services, or restart the VM. So it's a good idea to restart. So right-click, close, and just power off, and that's fine. And that's powering off, and that's fine. So that's what we needed to do for the domain, where we're supposed to assign the static IP addresses. So let me repeat this again, because this can be confusing. When you get your internet from the internet provider, they provide you with a physical device, which is a router and a hub, as you know. In order for you to get that default gateway static IP address, this is what you need to do. Go to your command prompt and type, find where your default gateway number is. In my case, yours will be very similar. It'll be 192.168. It could be 1 here. So when you assign static IP addresses, follow this schema here and assign it. So let me close this. And let me go back to here. And now let's power it on. So let's start it. Let's see that, make sure that the network is still on. So we want to verify that, obviously. And let's look at a full view. And I'll show you how to take this bar here and raise it and put it on the top rather than at the bottom. And then what we're going to do now is set up a few features for the virtual environment. So we're going to go over a few features in the next video, and I'll show you some of the things that you need to know and configure that will help you. One of them is going to be taking this and putting it on top. And the other thing is we've looked at the bridged, so that we've done that. And we may look at some of the monitor and the other features. And another feature I'm going to show you is what's called shared folder properties, and I'll be showing you that in a second. So let this start. So as you can see, you're in a position now of understanding what a domain is, how to create a virtual machine, how to install an operating system on it, and how to do a few configuration properties, and then how to assign a static IP address. So you've done a lot in this few, let's look at this, in this few right here. So go here, keyboard, insert, and remember we're joining a domain, so password, enter. And now, long as there's, this is why you need to just go OK here and OK. And you can see that we can see now that we have internet access. We have the domain called SQL domain. So this particular domain controller now can access the internet with a static IP address. So that's wonderful. And we've set up all the properties. One thing I do want to check is always go to your server manager. Make sure that the properties that we set for the firewall to be turned off and the IE to be turned off took. So let's just verify that. Go to local, left click local. And now let's see, the firewall should be off, which it is. And the IE enhanced security is off. So those took, and that's wonderful. And now we have a static IP, and now we have a full functioning SQL environment domain. And what we're going to do now, let's look at the other things. What we're going to do now is I'm going to create a second virtual machine in the next one, and we're going to join this virtual machine. We're going to join this SQL domain. So every time we create a virtual machine and it wants to be a part of an SQL domain server, we can join that, and this is what we're going to do next. So I think I've created everything I wanted to know. So we're going to start the next video of creating a second virtual machine. It's going to be identical to creating the domain controller. The only thing we're going to do is not promote it to domain. However, once we do that, we are going to join the SQL domain, and the only thing we're going to do is create another IP address, a static IP address, using the same format. And then on that particular second one, we're going to start installing SQL Server and see what that is about. So I think I'll leave it here. I've given you enough to think about. So I'll leave it here. We'll continue with the next one, which is creating a next virtual machine. So my name is Raphael, and this is how to become a production SQL database administrator. See you in the next video.